It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Yeah, get excited, everyone, because it is time for another episode of The Nonprofits, the show where we discuss the news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name is Secular Rarity, and today's topics are a bit of a roller coaster of emotions, so remember to keep your limbs inside the vehicle and your religion out of government. Before we talk about the topics today, let's go around this awesome panel all the way on my far end. It looks like, is that you, Jason? Jason Sherwood? Oh my gosh, man, how are you?
Didn't we just do this not that long ago?
It seems a little familiar, but I'm not convinced of deja vu just yet. So, but up next,
Absolutely.
We've got somebody else that I was recently had the pleasure of hanging out with, Nate Smith. How are you?
If you didn't believe in deja vu before, here I am again.
Yes.
And this time I'm going to be around for the whole show.
That's right. We are excited for that, man. It is always good to have you on and hanging out with you. And then finally, we have our special guest, somebody I am really excited to hear more from. It is Dr. Richard Firth-Godbehere. So how are you, Dr. Richard?
I am great, loaded up on caffeine from the UK, and you have to have a Brit Rich in this panel as often as possible, so I'm doing that job.
Thank you. Thank you for taking that spot for us, because, that's always something that we're concerned about. Nate's close enough, that it's something about the ocean, I think, that does it. But before we make fun of each other too much, let me remind everybody that this show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promoting positive atheism. And today, we're going to talk about progressives' win in Kansas, Sioux missionaries. So there's some stuff going on with the Oglala Sioux tribe and some Christian missionaries. Then we've got Christian nationalism is apparently going mainstream, and I'm not super happy about it. And finally, we've got the genesis of astronomy when we look back to the founding of the Royal Observatory. So as with all the shows here on the Nonprofits, folks, the links to today's articles and the news that we discuss are available in the description below. So definitely go check it out. But remember, you can always come to these shows prepared if you want. All you got to do is check out the Nonprofits Facebook fan page every Friday night. Because those articles always get posted ahead of time, folks. So hopefully you've read them and you're here prepared. But if not, that's okay. Sit down and join us because Jason, you're gonna talk to us about what was going on in Kansas not too long ago. What happened?
Oh, I am going to talk about what happened in Kansas. And Toto, yes, we are in Kansas, even though it looks a little bit different. It looks a little bit more progressive, and we were going back and forth as to whether or not we were going to call this a step in the right direction. But what happened is abortion got put to a vote in Kansas, and the people said, no, you will not have domain over my body. So they voted that to keep abortion in the state constitution, which everybody is still kind of reeling from. We don't know what happened other than, it looks like the issue of abortion is far from dead with the decision from the Supreme Court. And, it's really flabbergasting. I'm barely able to contain myself. And when I saw this, I'm just like, Kansas is being reasonable.
What?
Let that sink into you. Okay?
What?
Absolutely. And Nate, it actually kind of sounds like you have something to say about this.
I have many things to say about this, but I will point out that Kansas is the home of Dr. Darrell Ray, the founder of Recovering from Religion. So, Kansas hasn't always been all bad. But yeah, I think this is kind of the plus side of the Supreme Court throwing it back to the states and the state of Kansas throwing it to the voters, and then it's spectacularly backfiring for their agenda. Because I looked up a Pew Research poll, and it stated that 69%. Nice, right? 69% of people who identify as Republicans reply that abortion should be legal in most cases, which is, for Republicans, that's pretty good. So this just kind of reiterates to me that this activist court that y'all have down south, it does not represent the values of most American citizens. And I hope that this isn't the only state where their agenda just backfires in legendary fashion. I think it will.
Yeah, Richard, what do you think?
Yeah, as the token European, normally I gloat and go, "Are you still talking about abortion?" But we have this agreement going across Europe for certain human rights, and our government has just whipped out the abortion bit from it. So we have got a similar thing in that we've got a pretty right-wing government who are currently trying to get a new prime minister, and they're trying to out-right-wing each other. Apparently, we've got a crisis of funding. Nobody's got any money, but that's because poor people are lazy. But anyway, I digress. The one thing I see that's similar is that the government we've got and the right-wing conservatives we've got do not represent the conservatives in the same way. I don't think these crazy Republicans represent the mainstream Republican who's kind of a fiscal conservative, not quite as socially liberal as anybody else, and then looks at the hierarchy of the Republicans and goes, what? And I think we've got parallels there, that they're going to be surprised at the way some votes are going to go. If you're lucky, at the midterms as well. So, I'm watching with interest what's happening.
Yeah, I have to say, I think one of the things that I take a little bit of that Schadenfreude here, y'all, where we hear that the Catholic Church,
How dare you?
The Catholic Church lost $3 million fighting this. The Catholic Church spent so much money fighting against this, right? And all for it to just completely, I mean, just like y'all have said, just completely blow up in their face. But one of the things that really stuck out to me was that there was about 25% more votes cast in this kind of amendment thing than there were for like the governor. Like there were more votes that were going for this, which means that apparently a bunch of people just showed up to vote on abortion. What do you guys think? Is this something that we really will see in the polls like this, or is this just kind of a fluke thing? Maybe there's just a few more, left-leaning or human rights focused people in Kansas. Jason?
No, because this didn't fall on party lines at all. I mean, yes, there were plenty of true-blooded red Republicans who were like, no, abortion must be illegal. But for the fact that so many Republicans voted for this, and like you said, not for the governor, it seems like they care more about how their body is being handled than who actually leads them. I would argue that both are important. I can't really assign a value. Obviously, I don't want people messing with my body. I don't want people messing with my wife's body or, my friends and families, regardless of their point of views. So the fact that this did cross party lines, I don't see this happening in every state. I don't see this happening in, say, Texas, but in states like Missouri that yeah, they're red. Louisiana, maybe. It's so hard to say. We're in such unprecedented waters here, and it's exciting, but you have to be cautiously optimistic.
Georgia too. Georgia's kind of turning purple.
It is, yeah.
True.
Yeah,
That's
the
true.
fact that they went with Biden in the last election was definitely a shock to everybody.
Or did they?
Well,
Dun 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 dun.
no, they did.
Yeah,
they did.
they did.
Yeah, they did. They totally did. Yeah.
Nate, what do you think? Do you think this is something that is we're going to see in other states? Do you think this is a rallying cry that we can have for a lot of people out there that are focused on humanism and so forth? Or
Absolutely. As your neighbor to the north, looking down with a mixture of fear and cautious optimism, I think this is really going to embolden folks who are on the center right, who maybe don't necessarily agree with everything that's being said, and this rise of Christian nationalism and religious dogma, and they might have been slightly uncomfortable with it before, but I think seeing the example here, I think that might give them some courage in being able to sort of separate from these wackos on the Supreme Court and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and all the Creflo Dollar and these wackos, being able to be comfortable and saying like, no, I don't agree with that. Like I might agree with traditional conservative values, but no, I don't think that the government should tell me whether I have to have a baby. And as we've said so many times on this show, the right tends to galvanize so much better than progressive folks. And I think that by making this a wedge issue, it's only going to expose and alienate these Christian nationalists from their less fanatical conservatives, which I think is absolutely great because, conservatism isn't all bad. It's not my cup of tea, but we have to be able to disagree and not go to war, right? And that is kind of what makes our Western civilization so successful, is that we can disagree and have a civil discourse and decide amicably what we're going to do about it. And I think this is a step in the right direction in that spirit.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it has been. I've felt kind of a positive feeling since the Supreme Court, made that ruling and really dismantled the right to have an abortion across the country. I don't know that my state of Tennessee is gonna be able to pull off a victory like Kansas did. I'm kind of hoping, but I don't know that my optimism is there. Richard, what do you think? How optimistic are you for the U.S. to kind of ride this wave and maybe for it to come across the Atlantic over there? So,
well, sometimes I think that there are things that get people out to the voting booth. Voting for your governor at a primary isn't one of them, but abortion rights is, and I think that's what's going on there. And Democrats seem to me to be very hard to get to a voting booth. You basically have to crowbar them into one and say, "Will you just please vote?" Or have Trump in power for a while. That seems to do it. But this will get the Democrats out. And like you say, do you remember? There used to be people on the right who you'd have a conversation with and you'd simply disagree over certain issues. You wouldn't just end up in a shouting match, screaming at them because it's like, what are you talking about? And I'm hoping those people are coming back. I'm hoping the more reasonable voices are part of this Republican voting against, because really conservatism is government shouldn't be involved in my property and my money and I guess my body. So it's a very conservative view, really. So
yeah, definitely.
Let's see. Maybe even Texas. Who knows?
Cautious optimism. Oh, you bring Texas in there, man. You're sounding optimistic. Jason, what do you got?
Well, yeah, people have wondered if Texas was going to go blue or, turn purple. I don't think it's going to be a full, huge change. But, Richie, you said that, it's important that people get out to vote. And we've seen that the Brits do like to go out to vote. We've seen them name boats and planes in really weird fashion. But, what this has really shown, what this is vitally important, is that it is important that you go out and vote. Now, we won't tell you who to vote for. We won't endorse any candidate. We won't really even endorse a position so much as we say is, obviously we tend to be more progressive here at the ACA, and we tend to go for more humanistic ideas. But what is important is you go out and vote.
Yeah, for sure.
We had a tremendous amount of people vote for the president last time, more than anywhere in U.S. history, and the highest percentage in U.S. history. We had, more people voting on an issue than a person to lead them. Mm-hmm. Your vote matters, and it matters so much more now than probably any point in recent history. I'm not going to go back into, the 1800s, the 1700s to figure out, when the most appropriate time to vote. Now,
let's start with the Etruscans.
Yeah, no,
going real far back.
Let's not say we didn't.
Speaking of voting,
please, Nate, go ahead.
If we could maybe talk for a second just about how the Republicans tried to steal this one away. They schedule the vote in a typically low turnout month. They change the title of the referendum from this clumsy Kansas no state constitutional right to abortion, and then when they couldn't push that through, they changed it to value them both, which is a more nebulous title I can't imagine. And although in the article they don't really give details about it, we do have the old the go-to technique of the Ku Klux Christians, voter suppression.
Yeah,
that's right. I said it, Jason. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of funny business going on, but I think the two of you, really wrapped it up well in the sense of, look, if we have the option to vote, people, let's freaking take it every single time that we get it, plain and simple, because that's the only way that we see these types of victories. And again, like Jason said, in Kansas, y'all. I mean, I don't know. I'm happy about it. I think all of us are, and it's definitely a great way to kind of start this episode, because there are some not as great things coming up later on. So make sure you're sticking around, folks. But before we do that, we have to. We are contractually obligated to shout out a big thank you to all of the veteran and new viewers out there for getting us over 11,000 subscribers. Thank you all so much. We have been working forever on that, and it's because of y'all that we are finally there. And if you're watching us right now and you haven't subscribed yet, just do it. It's very easy. You just click a button, and then once you've subscribed, you can like this video and like all the other things that you see coming out here. It's just a little thumbs up, and then ring the bell, because there's always cool stuff going on here at the Nonprofits channel. And yes, every Sunday, 3 p.m. Central, you can come hang out with us when the new episode premieres. But there's always other good stuff going out every other freaking day. So make sure to check it out. Get that bell rung already so you never miss anything, folks. And finally, this is something that's really simple. Just share already. Just shoot this link out to everybody you can possibly think of. And, I don't know, make a few friends up and even send it to them. Why not? It's okay to have imaginary friends sometimes. That being said,
just as long as they can subscribe.
That's right. Just as long as they subscribe and they don't ask for 10%. But finally, are y'all aware that the atheist community of Austin has another YouTube channel? Well, it's awesome because The Atheist Experience Network is a channel where you can find all the ACA shows in podcast form, and you can subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcast to listen to all the episodes of the nonprofits, the Atheist Experience, Secular Sexuality, and all of the other awesome ACA shows here. So don't miss a single episode. In fact, 3 out of 4 hosts on this panel would agree that Talk Heathen is a phenomenal show that you should check out. And if you missed last week's, definitely you want to see that. So, but enough bragging and talking about how great we are. But I think we've got something else here from Nate. What's going on with the Oglala Sioux tribe, Nate?
What is going on with the Oglala Sioux tribe, SR? First of all, folks, I will apologize for the lo-fi Nate. My webcam decided to crap out moments before recording, so we're just gonna soldier on here. But we have 2 articles here. One details the North Dakota Oglala Sioux tribe's halting of missionary work on their land, pending a registration and vetting process. And then we have a second article that details a revised motion to permit ongoing operations for these Christian missions, but it basically just grants them a 90-day grace period for these churches' missions to comply with the order for registration. So being myself a quarter Sioux, this move just fills my little anti-theist heart with joy. Some of these missions have been busted distributing pamphlets, demonizing the traditional Lakota religion. So as far as I'm concerned, totally fair that tribe leadership cracks down here. And for me, like, this whole thing just illustrates how insidious the motivations of Christian missionaries are. Like, it's never enough just to build a school in Kenya. It's never enough to build a hospital in Haiti. It's always this leg up with a side of shame. You know, like, I wouldn't actually have any objection to Christians trying to live out the more altruistic portions of Jesus's message. But that's just never how this shit manifests. It's never enough just to let your actions speak for your convictions. It always comes with the undermining of the culture that they're seeking to destroy. Yeah. Always. I mean, I would be curious to hear if any of you can give me an example otherwise, but I'll throw it over to you, Jason. What do you have to say, sir?
So this was there's actually 2 articles here, and both are very important reads, because one sets up that, yes, they told, hey, you cannot distribute these pamphlets out. You know, it's not part of what you registered as. And then the second one was walking it back a little bit, saying that these missions can do things as long as it's written down and saying, hey, we are going to do this. We're going to collect money in this way. But I did find there were a couple of quotes in here that I really liked. I'm only going to read one of them for right now, but it's like the Jesus is King mission was ordered to leave the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation after pamphlets were distributed that promoted Jesus, and I'm not going to pronounce this name because I won't be able to. Basically, the Lakota creator is the true God. And I'm thinking, wait, that's an option? Because there's plenty of JWs that, you know, I walk around and they're handing out these pamphlets proclaiming these weird things, and yet no basis in reality. Could we just say, hey, you can't do that? You know, that would be great for me, just to say, you know, if you're going to put out these lies, if you're going to try to convert people to your way of thinking, just don't. Just don't.
Just don't.
What do you think,
Just
Richard?
No.
I think it's interesting what you're saying about, can you think of any missionary that doesn't go and just try and ride over the culture that they're in? I can't, no. But I think that culture is changing, that with the generation who the certain people describe as the woke generation, aren't they terrible? Yeah, they've woken up and they're going, oh, no, No, sorry. Our God's bigger than your God, which is kind of what this comes down to. But it's sort of, leave our God alone. It's ours. You have yours. And then we'll talk about it, rather than you just coming and taking over everything and saying, we'll build this thing, but you must do this, or you must read this, or you must believe this, or you must now pray in that way, or you can't come into our hospital. And it really, I find it quite heartening that there's a pushback against this sort of mission. I was going to call it missionary creep, but that's not a phrase. It is now. I'll go with it. This sort of creep of missionaries into groups to take them over. And if there's one thing in these culture wars time that I like, it's that the woke amongst us of, we'll go, stop. Enough now. Because they look at history and they see it and they see what happened and they don't want it anymore. So I find that quite interesting.
Yeah,
anything can be a phrase if you try hard enough.
yeah. If you just repeat it over and over again. But no,
I'll say it a few more times.
I think this was, two really, really rich articles when it comes to the amount of information that they had. Specifically, the one at Native News Online has a lot of information, and it gives a bit more of the backstory where there had been a handful of different Christian missionary organizations that had done some crappy behavior, right? And this wasn't the first time that they'd gotten in trouble for this. So it, again. Part of me is really, really on board because we have seen the systemic violence and hatred that, Christian missionary work has done to tribal lands and various tribes across North and South America, right? I mean, it has been just a history of blood and hatred, and that is terrible. Part of me wonders, is this breaking that wall of separation between church and state, right? So the Oglala Sioux is a sovereign nation. They're able to absolutely make their own decisions. I mean, we signed treaties with them. This is how this works, folks. And a lot of us in the U.S. may not, view it like this, but when you go into a Native American tribal land, like you're in a different country. You are. Is this them going too far and demonizing religion? Is this the right amount of secularism? Is it, what do you think, Nate?
Absolutely. One thing that stuck out to me was when one of these missions, it's a dream center, I think they call it dream center, which is, typically Christian. A dream center pastor was speaking about her perceived persecution and referred to your culture was beautiful, referring to the Sioux culture in the past tense. And this is just like, when I read that, I'm like, this is the perfect microcosm of the whole fucking problem here, right? It's your mindset that it's gone and it needs to be fixed, and we're going to fill that gap with Jesus. Right? Like, yes, Native American culture was decimated. Populations were decimated to the tune of like 80 to 90% in both North and South America, but it ain't dead. And these people are reminding you that it ain't dead yet.
Yeah. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, and going back to what you said on the violent aspect of mission work, Eleanor Ferguson, who is the Oglala Lakota and representative of International Indigenous, wow, I'm reading that really great, aren't I? Indigenous Youth Council. I think she said it best when she said Christianity didn't become a world religion because of the quality of its teaching, but of the quantity of its violence. And that is 100% true. The faith at the barrel of a gun, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
But I would also like to be clear that, Nate, you said that these were secular decisions, and it almost seems like it but it's also not. They're not trying to say, oh, we don't want your magical thinking because it's magical thinking. They were saying we don't want magical thinking because it's not our magical thinking. So, yes, it's good that they're telling Christianity, no, you are not welcome here. And I applaud them. If they want to go a step further, I will applaud them even further. If they were to make their decisions based upon science and reason to dictate policy, again, be 100% on board. And that's where some of this, in the second article that is posted on here, just not quite a step in the right direction. It's not quite, where we want them to, well, actually that sound really terrible, colonizers saying where we want them to be. Sorry, not what I mean. But it would be nice if they would be able to say, okay, we're doing this because we want to become more secular. We want to use less magical thinking is where I'm going at.
Sure. I think we would both prefer no deities over traditional ones, but I think this is more about the preservation of their culture than religion. I don't know how many of these folks actually believe that Tunkasila is a real entity. I kind of would lean towards they probably don't, and that this is more about the preservation of their culture than it is about an actual genuine belief in a sky wizard.
I
could be wrong though.
We'll get right on that survey.
What do you think? What do you think, Richard? Because honestly,
$5, Jason.
I'm not sure that I know where I stand if I think this is too far or not far enough. So yeah, what are your thoughts, Richard?
Like I said earlier, I was saying that our God is bigger than your God. There is an element of that. There's also an element, I have no idea whether they genuinely believe what they believe or not. I'm going to assume they do until they tell me otherwise. But at the same time, there have been tactics taking place, like them groups complaining, yeah, but what about the drugs and drink? Why don't you address that? To which they're saying, we've been trying to and no one's been turning up. So... and you always see these kind of tactics with these kinds of groups. Let's find a way around it. Let's try and find some reason you're doing it that's not that we've just overstepped the mark. But yeah, maybe it's taking them as an example of when churches overstep the mark for the rest of the world, let's say, is a good thing. And holding them up and saying, no, get out of here. Enough. Maybe we can kick the bishops out of our House of Lords. Anyway.
Yeah, on like I said earlier, kind of on first blush here, it's like, I feel like this is a moment where they are trying to hold these organizations accountable for some of the bad stuff that they've done. There was a beautiful quote by a 19-year-old activist, Tyler Starr comes out, who said, we don't want any more assimilation. We don't need any more churches, and we don't need your God. And I gotta say, I agree, 100% on all of that. That sentiment, I'm like, I am freaking right there with you, Tyler. Again, there's that part of me that says, if we are trying to have a government that, doesn't give preferences or demonize based on religion, is this too much, And I'm honestly just not sure. And I think that's okay, and we'd love for, everybody out there that hears this and reads the articles, please tell us what your thoughts are on this. Are they doing the right thing? Are they not? Should we even be asking that question? Again, they are a sovereign nation, But yeah, Nate, you look like you got more to say, man. What else is going on?
Oh, I could go on forever and ever, but one of the things that I really like to see, and we kind of mentioned it, is these speakers are so young and yet so passionate. One's 19. We got another one that's a member of their youth council. Like, this is the involvement and the activism that we need to see in younger generations, right? And not only in Native culture, but in progressive culture as well, because it's the young folks that are going to be there for longer and vote for longer, like Jason was saying in the previous segment. It's you folks that are there that maybe haven't voted or haven't voted regularly or haven't made it a habit, like some folks who might be, you know, like myself, who are, I'll be generous and say approaching middle age, but it's you guys that are going to make the difference, and it's going to be your country when I'm in a fucking nursing home. So get out there and get involved, and seeing these young Native folks actually speaking up and speaking truth to power is fucking great. I love it.
Yeah, totally agree. Jason, any other thoughts? I mean, what is there a way that this is, you know, we see this again, like rolling across the nation? Are we going to see more organizations that are, you know, Christian missionaries or other just kind of, you know, bad apple type religious organizations? Are we going to see them held accounted, you know, be held accountable in other places, or what do you think?
I mean, after I successfully canceled myself previously, no,
I'll give you a hall pass for that one, Jason.
Yeah. It's late hour, sure. We'll go with that. Anyway, no, I really hope we do. I hope that, you know, I don't want to see as much of the, you know, oh, well, we're just going to go ahead and say only our religion is going to be welcome here. You know, I would still like to have, you know, people be as welcome anywhere, and I would like to see the progressive movement in whatever form it turns into. Like Nate said, you've got these young, passionate people who are just fighting for what's theirs. And it does give me a little bit of hope. Again, just like with the last segment, cautiously optimistic. And we just got to keep fighting for tomorrow.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's so nice when we get to do good news on the nonprofits.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, even though as I was reading these articles, there were, you know, so many questions that were jumping out at me. You know, I still think kind of the main focus that the council has here is really good. Like, again, I like the idea of us calling out religious organizations that are out there just being shitty to people, and all because their God said so, basically. What about you, Richard? Any other thoughts on this? Anything else you want to highlight?
Yeah. It's all about the kids, man. I teach first year undergraduates quite regularly, and they really do kick ass. I mean, I'm not kidding. They are an amazing group. And if there's one generation who's going to save old people like me from the sorts of people that are currently saying, I don't care if you can't afford your electricity, go away. It's them, because they just come out and do stuff. They vote as well. They vote, which is important, passionately. And this is a great example of that, of just somebody who is a group of kids who are like, no. Because they seem to be the driving force, and the elders are letting them do it, almost as if the elders wanted to say this for generations, and are going, yes. So it's great. I'm more optimistic about when I'm 60 than I am when I'm 50, to be quite honest, because I think there's a generation coming through who are going to swing the big pendulum back the way I personally like it. So, yeah, it's a very interesting things going on there.
Yeah, there has been
things.
A few years, I think, worldwide, where a lot of people that really valued, how do I put this? Just basic human rights. Like, there was a few years there, I think a lot of us were really, really on edge. And it is kind of nice whenever we can see those little upticks, you know, back towards just treating people like people, and not treating them like they're less than, for no other reason than they're different, right? Anybody else? Any other good thoughts or anything before we go on? Sweet. I'll take that as
I'm just happy to see Native folks standing up for their culture.
I agree. And it's always good when we can highlight things that are just not as highlighted as much. I know this didn't get as much attention as a lot of other things out there, but it's good. It's good when we have the opportunity. So I think that's probably a good time for a break, y'all. You guys need a minute here. We're going to take a minute. But while we take a break, if you didn't check out the other ACA shows last week, folks, here's what you missed.
The whole idea of like boy brains and girl brains is kind of, it gets in that area where very quickly people take it and turn it into woo-woo science. Kind of like when we talk about like energy or frequencies or things like that.
Sure.
And like, there's a lot of real science to talk about here. And then some people are like, I have a crystal in my pocket that wins the lottery.
Multiple sacred relics, sometimes of the same thing. Like the foreskin of Jesus.
Sorry, Dan, I need to interrupt you regarding the foreskin of Jesus because there were several foreskins of Jesus
No, that's what I'm
hanging
saying.
around.
There's more than one.
And
Which is like, what does that mean?
I'm going to pretend like I believe in God. I'll make myself a bishop, and then God will bestow upon me all the riches of the poor around me that I would like to steal. Because that's what I see going on here. The guy was a complete grifter.
Through the scientific method as opposed to anything else, because that's the thing that's been the most reliable. And then those of us that are atheists would also say like, hey, it's probably not going to be God because it's never been God.
Yeah, it hasn't been God yet.
Right.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten that conclusion yet.
It's bat and zero so far.
Right.
If the answer is evidence is how we get from there was a dude named Jesus who was crucified, and evidence is how we're going to get to him being God. Give me one thing that can be used to demonstrate the truth of the claim Jesus is God.
And we are back, folks. But before we go into the last couple of segments for this episode, I've got to let you know that we know at the ACA that it has been a long couple of years or so since the last time we've been able really to get together. But good news is that based on the updates from the CDC and other scientific organizations, we are going to be able to ease back into doing live shows and events. And the first one I have to tell you about is August 27th of this year. It's the Bat Cruise in 2022, folks. The boat has been chartered. The bats are roosting and chilling out under the Congress Avenue Bridge. And we are looking forward to an absolutely awesome BYOB and BYO food evening with the ACA community of friends. The details on getting those tickets will be shared soon, but now you have the date for your summer scheduling. So go ahead, pull out your calendar. If you don't have a calendar, go buy a calendar and put this on it as the first date. And then the next date you can go ahead and circle and block off is literally the next day, just August 28th. We're going to be having another live show from the Free Thought Library. Both Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience will be broadcast at their normal times, 1 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. respectively. But now you can be a part of the studio audience. So start the planning now. Get the whole family into the station wagon, the dogs, the cats, the rabbits. I don't know what kind of pets you have, but get them all packed up and get on over to Austin, Texas in the USA here. And you can meet and greet your fellow non-believers, show hosts, and the people who make all of this magic possible. The wonderful, wonderful crew. You will get to say hey to them and some other really awesome people and just watch all the magic happen in real time. So the doors to the library will be open at 12 noon to the public. So we hope to see everybody there that can possibly make it. And if you can't make it there in August, that's okay, because we're going to keep doing live broadcasts from the library the last Sunday of each month. So keep watching the shows and go check out the website, atheist-community.org, for all the news and information as we expand the in-studio offerings in the future. So this is definitely something that is so super cool. And I am hoping to make my way out there before too long. But anybody that can get out there, go ahead and do it already, and just say hey to some people. But with that, we're gonna kind of take a little bit of a downswing, y'all. Get just a little bit upsetting here as I gotta highlight this problem we're having here in the United States. So it seems to be the case, folks, if you haven't been paying attention. More and more people are really taken to this Christian nationalist label. Like, I think there's even somebody, some representative from somewhere who yells a lot about things and, may or may not remind us of a color. But she might even be selling T-shirts that talk about being a proud Christian nationalist. This is something that is absolutely infuriating for me personally. I think everybody else here feels this way as well. But this is a blatant attempt to just rip away some of the rights that are guaranteed to us in the Constitution. This is something that is just fundamentally opposed to what the founding of our government is about. And so I am definitely concerned about this. I am not excited to see more and more people talking about, I think even somebody was talking about a freaking citizenship test based on like how much of the Bible you know. But before I go completely off the rails,
which atheist would win?
Oh my gosh, right? I mean, they don't even realize how ironic it is that. But let me get an outsider perspective first. Richard, what do you think about this? I mean, you've been on the outside, kind of watching this grow, and now we're at the point that literally elected senators and representatives are like calling for this. So what are you thinking over there in your neck of the woods?
Yeah. Well, I've always been confused by nationalism. You happen to fall onto the earth, into a certain bit of the rock, and that bit of the rock's the bestest in the whole wide world. It doesn't matter which it is. Your bit of the rock is the bestest. It's so good. And it's very strange to me. But I have to say, America does it better than most places. This thing about standing in front of the flag before school with your hand on your heart, reciting the play. What's that about? It's a bit culty. Is it? And being brought up with the idea that people still believe America's the only free country in the world. I mean, there's like 150 countries and 120 of them, to quote the film, are free. And, and then you've got the Christian side. There aren't any mega churches anywhere else, really. You've got the mega churches. We've got the closest I know to a mega church is in a little warehouse down in London, and it seats about 250, and that's huge for us. It's like, wow. It's also Afro-Caribbean, so the music's much better than the country you get in the mega churches there. But and it doesn't surprise me that eventually these are just wedged together into this. America is God's country. It's, we're founded on the Bible. It's like, yeah, you need to read more history. That's so wrong. It's not even wrong. And it's a little bit scary as well. They kind of tried it here. They had this big thing about England is a Christian nation, but it faded away. Right now, one of our potential prime minister candidates is Hindu, would you believe? Appointed by his party. He's a brown-skinned Hindu, which is... which would be ironic if our Conservatives had the first Hindu person of colour prime minister in this country. Comes from the Conservatives, would make my mind blow up. But anyway, but yeah, it's kind of scary, and I don't know how Trump is to blame for this. Even the guy doesn't believe anybody's God except himself. I don't think. But what you're going to do? Tell me what you're going to do about it. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, Jason. Jason, what are we going to do?
To be fair, y'all invented the megachurch. Those 16th century cathedrals, those were the megachurches of their time. The U.S. just turned it into a franchise. Sorry, SR, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
Jason, what are we gonna do? Richard's asked, and what you got it, man. Help us out. Figure this out for us.
Well, and I'll actually answer Richard's question about 45. I don't like to use his name. He did not create Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
Christian nationalism existed well before him in organizations like the Ku Klux Klan. It existed even before that through various other organizations. So he did not create Christian nationalism. He did give it a big old megaphone. He allowed these people to come out of the woodwork and say, yes, we're here. And he weaponized it. And it didn't matter that he held the Bible upside down, because really, win or lose, he's going to continue this narrative. It's always going to be about how you can confuse a bunch of people into being so proud of their country that they're willing to say everyone else sucks. Now, be proud for your country. Some of your countries did some great things. We did some great things. We also did a whole lot of horrible things. And you need to have that balance to get the full picture, to find out how good a people can be. If you can live through those terrible times, these terrible times, and come out of it stronger than ever, that is the true metric of how a country is doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well said.
Nate, what are you thinking?
Oh, I agree with Jason that 45. I won't say his name. I won't say Voldemort's name just for you, Jason. But I agree that he wasn't the creator or even like had a big role in this Christian nationalism. He's just the product of it, and he's a fucking patsy. Like, I don't even know to what degree he's aware of what he was doing in the advancement of the Christian nationalist agenda. What I think, the appeal of people like him or Marjorie Taylor Greene or like Tucker Carlson, or just pick your far right lunatic, is they use plain speech. You know, they don't use the political doublespeak that most politicians use. And I think it's really tough to respond effectively to a simple, stupid message delivered with conviction, with that typical bland, vanilla response that you get from most politicians. I think, and this is just my hot take, I think what the progressive movement needs is more people who are intelligent and well-spoken, but don't feel the need to dress up their prose with these $10 words. Like someone like AOC, not promoting political candidates, but someone like AOC is a great example of a progressive that uses plain speech. She is smart as hell, and she doesn't need to be fancy. She's just who she is, and she wears her heart on her sleeve. And that is what we need more of to combat these populist assholes.
Yeah, and I will say, you touched on a good point, and they talk about this a little bit in the article, that there seemingly is a thread through these disparate groups that all kind of adhere to Christian nationalism, where they really are trying to piss people off with the stuff that they say. Like they're attempting to be combative, and yeah. Richard, do you think that type of like plain speech that Nate was talking about is kind of emboldening these movements? Do you think that's what's driving them, or is there maybe something else going on?
I think it's a bit of that. I think it's a bit of just speaking like people speak. I mean, Boris Johnson, he doesn't speak how people speak. Boris Johnson, it's all whiff waff, there's a great big scallywag, and then that's kind of Boris Johnson. But he doesn't speak like a politician, or didn't. I don't know. Past tense, he's still the prime minister, but he's on holiday. But he didn't speak like a politician, and people kind of liked that it was normal. And the opposition leader does. He's an ex-barrister, a great barrister. He speaks a bit like a lawyer, but he's number two whenever she's speaking. She's the last from up north who talks like that and goes, well, it's talking a load of rubbish. And people like her more. So there is something to be said for just being normal. The thing about saying what you think, though, the people who say what they think and what they think is nasty seem to do a lot better than those who don't. And that's, I don't know how to do that. So many people have become rich from just being horrible. And that puzzles me. One day I'll work it out, but it puzzles me.
It's the TV aspect. It's the absolute TV aspect. You need to have, the competition. You need to have this controversy, the strife. You need to have an antagonist to go against the protagonist. You need this is a story that is being written out in front of us. This is the worst of reality TV with the worst of scripted TV. And people are kind of just eating it up. I don't honestly get it because I don't watch reality TV. I've tried to in the past, and I just couldn't get past how fake it typically is. But it's like, oh, they're speaking what the way that I'm doing, and it blows my mind.
I think you definitely touched on something really, really good there. There is this kind of not really performance, but like performance, like just living that quintessential I'm fighting the bad guys narrative. They're all coming after me, and I'm going to be able to like fix it all and stuff. Especially when it comes to the Christian nationalism that we see kind of molding with these militia groups. And this is just something that we're seeing more and more and more of. I mean, folks, there are compounds in the United States. I don't know how many of our viewers are aware of this, but there are compounds in the United States where they are completely blocked off with barbed wire fences and electric, fences and all kinds. I mean, guards at the freaking gates. And you don't get in unless you're willing to join this Christian nationalist militia. So yeah, I mean, it is not, it is definitely something that needs to be called out and needs to be, freaking, I don't know exactly how we fight it. But Nate, yeah, what do you got, man?
I am just so unimpressed by these gravy seals. Like, as someone who is actually in the actual infantry, like, these guys are so beyond ridiculous that it's fucking laughable. Like, and I'm not advocating for violence in any fashion. Absolutely not. But like, they come out and they're like, oh, we have guns and we're gonna take over and smash these soft ass liberals. Like, you know what? Like, progressive people own guns too. We just don't jerk off about it in public, right? So I looked up a few studies because I am a progressive firearms owner, as many of you who have ever seen this show have probably heard me talk about. But I looked up a few studies. Liberal gun owners are more likely to seek out gun handling training, more likely to safely store their firearms, and we are 43% less likely to be involved in an accidental gun death in our home.
All of those sound good to me.
If it ever comes down, those all sound like very good things. So like, if it all comes down, and I hope it doesn't, and obviously it won't because it's fucking ridiculous, but if it ever comes down to this like stupid civil war that these people want to crave, it's going to end up like their Kansas vote, and they're going to get their asses handed to them.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Richard?
Not advocating violence.
Right. Of course. We're saying this may turn out a little bit differently than these people are thinking. What are your thoughts, Richard? Anything else you wanted to highlight or just kind of jumped out at you from these articles?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's that there are these compounds is kind of bizarre. I mean, they do know that one well-trained, well, regular soldier, I'm not even going to go into special forces, on their own could probably take them all out one night. Because they know what they're doing. They're not just heavy-set guys with big beards and massive guns. They're people who actually know what they're doing. I don't have the beard. I have the heavy-setness, though, so maybe I should buy a gun.
I've got two of them.
I don't know where I get one from. I'm British. I'd have to put them in the docks with like $80,000 and I'd be in prison a day later.
You guys can have flintlocks, can't you?
I think you can walk into a Walmart in Tennessee. Go ahead.
But it's this strange, because there are three things here. There are three things. There is the Christianity aspect, there's the nationalism aspect, and there's the big ass guns aspect. And it's not a good combination, really. Although that Christianity bit, they might want to close read it, because I don't think Jesus mentions guns that often, as I recall.
Something about them not existing.
I
think you're
I don't
right.
think it was a part
stabbing
of the Ten
people or
it's true. That's a good
thou
point.
shalt own a gun.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thou shalt not call a magazine a clip.
Jason, what do you think?
What this mainstream Christian nationalism, what we're really seeing here is we are seeing a wounded animal that is dying, and it is lashing out hard. That is clearly what we're seeing, and we're also seeing. We didn't really have a chance to talk about this because this last bit of news broke, very recently. We had the FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago. We've had the Alex Jones decision. These are mainstream Christian nationalist themes that are getting taken down. Now, you're also seeing the anti-protest and the protest of the anti-protest. They're calling for the dissolving of the FBI because how dare they investigate their dear leader. But we're seeing the death knell of Christian nationalism. It's never going to go away.
Yeah.
But it is taking such a beating right now that, I started out in my notes here. It's always darkest before the dawn. It's going to get darker. It really is. And it's going to suck. However, we will get through this. We've always gotten through every single last one of these situations. And I still have to believe that because the end of history has not been written yet. So let's just, like I said earlier, keep fighting for tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think this is a good segment to highlight after those first two that we did with this episode, because I think the best way to push back on this is exactly what we saw from the first two articles. Get out, make your voices heard by voting, make your voices heard whether you're 19 or 99. This is something that we can't possibly highlight enough. We can't possibly talk about enough. It is something that while it may be the death throes, it's still alive currently, right? And it has enough power that it's
very much so.
It's making decisions, and that is not freaking okay. Because as everybody here knows that is watching, we at the ACA are definitely big fans of separation of religion and government. So, but with that, we'll move on to our final segment. But before we do, I just want to let every wonderful viewer of this channel know that for as little as 99 cents a month, you can become a member. All you got to do is click the join button below this video, and that will give you access to super awesome chat emojis. In fact, become a member of the channel, and then why not tell us in the comments what type of emojis you'd like to see? Maybe you want more of my face or less of my face. Either are acceptable. But in the meantime, did you know that we have a brand new store? That's right. Just visit tiny.cc/merch ACA to get all your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs. You can also check out some stuff like beanies, phone cases, and tote bags. And I will let you in on a little secret, which is all of the ACA shows feature a special limited edition item every month. Okay. So you got a short amount of time to grab this thing. But you make sure you go and you check out the store for all the great nonprofits merch and merch from all the other super duper cool shows. So I've seen some of the shirts from Truth Wanted.
Yeah, just want to mention one quick little thing on that. The shirt that was up there is actually last month's shirt. This month we have saying religious evidence. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. So
and that they can only get that
because it's
a good one.
Fun.
It's only for August, right?
It's only for August, yes.
Okay, so you guys got to get on that. The links are below. Definitely go check that out, folks. But now let's take a moment and let's look back in history, folks. We have Richard
looking back.
Well, as the resident historian and the resident Brit, King Charles II was the second worst king called Charles, and probably the second worst king called anything. But one thing he did get right is that on the August the 10th, 1675, he gave the permission to have the Royal Observatory in Greenwich built, which is an amazing building. I've been there many times. It's where the meridian is for zero, and you can stand in both hemispheres at once. It doesn't feel particularly strange, but it's there. And it was built to track the stars for the Navy. And before long, it was tracking stars for other things because they made amazing star charts that weren't actually beaten until the 1940s with this incredible telescope. But the article we read talks about the way that astronomy kind of started to eat into Genesis and wear away Genesis's legitimacy, because the more we looked through these telescopes, the more utterly wrong Genesis seemed to be. So Galileo's famous for the first telescope. He's also famous for getting into trouble by pissing the Pope off by calling him a bit of an idiot and not doing the book that he promised to write. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, it's amazing to think that this thing developed for the Navy has ended up changing the world so much. If only certain creationists could know by how much. I mean, yeah. What do people think? Who wants to go with this?
As a former squid. Oh, no.
As a former squid.
Yeah, go
I
ahead,
still am a squid.
What do you think, Jason?
Jason, go squid.
Well, oh no, that's former naval person in American, I should say. So, yeah, no, this was really great, and it allowed science to kind of really take off and really observe how the universe was created, and to the point where we get a lot of callers on the different shows about, oh, the Bible is so accurate and depicts the actual creation, and it really doesn't. And in this main article, it does something that I feel like none of the other shows have really got a chance to do. And if you'll indulge me just for like a little bit.
By all means, sir.
Yeah. Even if you look at the creation in millions of years or in stages, it still falls apart, because like in day or stage one, Earth is somehow created, but that's before the stars, before the creation of day and night, before the sun. That makes absolutely no sense. What actually happened was the evolution of the universe, not the Big Bang, as some people would say it. That is a massive expansion of the universe, so the evolution of the universe. Stage two, the creation of water. Again, sun hasn't been created yet. What actually happened was the evolution of stars and our sun. Gases coalescing and creating these giant stars. Stage day 3, creation of other planets. Well, that would have happened in that almost is correct, because that was the evolution of Earth, Moon, and so hey, they got stage 3 correct. Woo. Almost.
Something.
Stage 4, now you're creating the sun, the moon, and the stars. Yeah, no, the evolution of water would have happened at that point. Stage 5, the creation of fish and birds. You would have had plants, then fish, then land animals, and then birds. Stage day 6, creation of land animals and the creation of human beings. And we came way after, like the last few minutes of day or stage 7. So, yeah, everything about it is completely wrong. And I've taken up way too much time on that one. So, Nate, take it away from me.
I'm going to push back, because according to some of our callers on other shows, mammals can or reptiles can live in space, right? Have you not heard the good word of Space Snake? He is an intergalactic sarlacc monster that is going to devour SR.
The outer darkness. No,
Travels the globe. That's what I've heard,
bro.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
He travels the globe and is in the globe.
We heard the atheist screams from there somehow.
Atheist screams.
How we opened it, how we even saw it. Well, that's that color.
Man, it's all in Genesis. If you would open your eyes and have faith in the metaphor, you would understand, man.
The literal
wrong
metaphor.
with you people.
The literal metaphor, exactly. I think one of the things that it jumped out at me is just how fucking long we have been doing some of this stuff that we just kind of all lump together as science. Like the fact that, we've been going about this for almost 400 years in this manner, right? Like, where we actually go through building these establishments that are entirely focused on this, right? No longer is it just some guy, just sitting away in his observatory like it was before. Now we've got institutions. We're calling people together and we're saying, go and learn more and understand more. I mean, I think this kind of like is a death blow to that argument from, theists that say, that talk about how super critical and important, religion was for modern science. It just doesn't seem to be the case when we go back and we hear this stuff, right? And Richard, please, I mean, give us some more. This is definitely your wheelhouse.
Well, I want to hear more from Richard.
Yeah. Well, this is the weird thing, because what you'll get is this argument that says, well, all modern science comes from Christianity. It's like, yeah, but I came from my dad's sperm and I'm not a sperm. It doesn't. Yeah, there's, for example, empiricism. Empiricism goes back to this thing known as cultura anima, this idea of the culture of the spirit. And it comes from a belief that we have post-lapsarian and post-forebrains, and they're rubbish. So if you take everything out and put it outside, you can look at the universe without your rubbish brain getting it wrong. And so they use this technique for look for God for 400 years, and he ain't there. So about 250 years in, they went, shall we stop the looking for God bit, because it's not really working out for us? Let's just look at the amazing things we keep finding. So go on, Christians, make that argument. Go for it. Tell us how it came from Christianity. And I'll go, yeah, that church down the road that's now a lovely block of flats, that came from you too. It's much nicer with the kitchen in it, I got to say. Who cares? Who cares? Origins are not realities now. But yeah, it's I don't know. I just find, by the way, one thing I will just say, the one thing about this article that worried me is how it said the evolution of the universe, the evolution of the stars, the evolution of the earth. I can see Kent Hovind right now going, I see, it's all evolution. I told you, I'm going to get some water. And then it's just, it's a metaphor, Kent. Just look it up. Metaphor in a book. It's just, but yeah.
He's putting the meta in metaphor.
I think one of the best things Christianity ever did is try to look at the universe to explain God rather than read the book, because we're here now because of it, many of us. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, right? I mean, without that, we wouldn't have all this awesome stuff where we're all communicating to each other online and hooked into things and microphones and all that. But what are you thinking, Jason? Was there something in this article that really jumped out at you as just being super, super cool?
It's just that we're seeing the best and worst of what science has to offer right now. And no, it didn't start with the creation of this this observatory, but we have seen so much good come from this. We're seeing it through the James Webb Space Telescope. We're seeing further and further into the universe, further and further back into time. We're seeing whole stars and whole galaxies, birth and burn to death. And it's just such an amazing time. And to think that it started with, some religious guys going, hey, let's go ahead and look up in the stars and get some navigation going.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Nate, what do you think?
So my notes going in for this segment were somewhat anemic because I went in last because Dr. Rich already had his notes, and by God, this man is prolific. He could have written a fucking novel about the Royal Observatory. It was amazing. And I know, SR, I know you have some place to be, so I'll just throw it to Dr. Rich by asking, could Harold Godwinson have won the Battle of Hastings if he had rested and resupplied?
Yeah, probably, but he didn't. So,
right, well, you're lucky, SR. You got a short answer. I'm just going to totally derail the conversation. I got a historian, man. I don't get to talk to historians.
No,
I'm a history nerd.
I totally agree. I mean, please, Richard, give us any other thoughts you have on this, but before we close out, because it is, I mean, there is a lot of fascinating stuff in these articles, as well as the stuff that you've written. So please give us as much of that as you possibly can for another minute or so.
Well, I'm not going to go too much. I mean, one of my gripes with the secular community is the way people talk about what happened with Galileo, because Galileo wasn't persecuted and tortured and all those things because he was a heretic. He was done for vehement suspicion of heresy, because basically his mate, the Pope, who was a cardinal who stopped the other Pope from giving him hell, said, write a book. Half the book's got to be this new Copernican idea, the half of it's got to be Ptolemaic, keep it balanced. And Galileo, who, let's just say, was a troublemaker, did not keep it balanced. He basically made the Ptolemaic side look ridiculous and the Copernican side look amazing. And so, of course, the Pope went, oh, we've got to do something about him. So he dragged the old Pope's rule that Galileo has to shut up a bit and put him under house arrest. And that's kind of what happened. It was all about egos, really. It's always all about egos. Mm-hmm. At the time, kind of the Ptolemaic wasn't even the accepted solution. It was this thing called the Tychaic model, which is everything goes around the sun except the Earth, which is in the middle, and everything. It's complicated and totally just not right.
That sounds bizarre.
But Copernicus was growing, and a few years later, you get the Royal Institute starting and the Royal Academy of the Sciences starting, and you get this observatory built. And then 10 years after the observatory, Newton comes along and he's rude to everybody but brilliant at the same time. So it's not like science wasn't flourishing. And it's being held back. Quite the opposite. This is a period where everyone had realized that Aristotle was completely wrong. Aristotle, America. You didn't mention America. Why didn't you mention actually the Bible? Where's America in the Bible? And that freaked people out, and so the ancients are wrong. So that's as succinct as I can get it. That's kind of it. That was kind of it. It's like, where is this continent in all literature?
That was in the Mormon book, but
that's right.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
we won't go into fan fiction.
You got the Bible 2.0 a little bit later.
It is very important to wear special pants. I do agree with them there. I always wear, the rare time I'm wearing pants at all, I wear special underwear.
And we will not speak about whether or not the current hosts are or are not pantsed. So you guys can think about that on your own, folks. But sorry, any other thoughts?
Figure it out
Richard?
in the comments.
Figure it out in the comments. The thoughts are that this chair is very comfortable with what I am or may not be wearing. Other than that, I think a history of science is a fascinating thing. There are some wonderful books out there that everybody should read. I've just picked one. They're all brilliant, pretty much. And it just goes to show that one of the greatest times that Christianity shot itself right in the foot is when it invented modern science. Oops. It's great.
Yeah. And I think that's an absolutely fantastic way to wrap this episode up. So for everybody out there that's hanging with us while we're doing this live or is watching in the future, remember that you can join our fan social media outlets. You can find most of the nonprofit hosts on the atheist community of Discord by just going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. Or if you find yourself already shopping at Amazon, remember that you can support the atheist community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the atheist community of Austin as the beneficiary. So be sure to check out that link because it really does help out the ACA and we appreciate it. Also, we value your feedback, folks. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like in the comments below. Figure out those questions that we've left you with here at the end of the show. Or just send us an email at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. And also remember to visit the Atheist Community of Austin's official website at atheist-community.org on the latest of what's been happening. And always feel free to shoot us an email at tv@atheist-community.org. Before we go, let's go in kind of reverse order. Richard, any final thoughts you want to wrap us up with for the whole show?
Apart from even that segment, I think what we've got to do is remember that the kids are amazing, and if the kids get out and vote, we'll all be fine. So let's make that happen.
Yeah, agree. Nate, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Activism is so important. That's why we do what we do here on this show every week on many different shows. So yeah, if this show speaks to you, get involved. You can email the ACA. You can help out behind the scenes, on the scenes, in your local government. Whatever it is that you can do, get involved. But most importantly, as Dr. Rich said, and we've said, vote.
Jason, final thoughts.
So when I was in high school, I would always have the saying that it's all good until it's bad, and then it sucks. And for the longest time, I truly believed that. And I would think that, okay, no, we're going into the bad. But again, we need to fight for the good. We need to fight for the future. You need to vote.
Yeah.
I know I for the longest time would say, oh, my vote doesn't count. You know when your vote doesn't count? When you don't cast it.
Mm.
We've got the midterms coming up here in the United States. We've got the general election coming up in 2 years. You need to vote. And I don't care. This isn't just in America. Vote for that boat. Call it Bodie McBoatface. Whatever. Get your voice out there.
Yeah. I definitely agree with all of that, y'all. It has been so much fun hanging out with the three of you on this panel. And thank you, everybody out there that is watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast. we always have a great time doing this stuff, and we'll see you next time.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.